mindset, manifestation, feeling your feelings, psychic awareness, feminine awakening, interdependence, bringing the luxury back into spirituality, the deepest friendships you could ever want, conflict resolution, the healthy masculine, the divine feminine. Welcome to High Havingness. Enjoy your journey. Hello, everybody, and welcome back in the new year to High Havingness, the podcast. I'm your host, Alexandria Kenyon, and I have a very special guest today, a new friend in my life, somebody who I immediately had a resonance with, and yeah, we've talked every day since. So welcome to the podcast, Vika. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm Vika Bradford. I'm Karmic Astrologer by trade, I guess, if you have to put like a label on it. But obviously everyone listening understands it's so much more than the little trade labels or career labels or whatever we put on top of ourselves. But Karmic Astrology is my baseline. I work with people in a deep liberation of wounding and helping souls cultivate freedom through going into the darkness, going into the shadows, going into our past lives to, I don't know, cultivate space really to hold all this stuff that's in our karmic DNA, our karmic scars, and the residue that's kind of holding you back from being your true self. That's essentially what I do here on Earth. And I do it through a lot of stars, embodiment, and kind of just provoking people out of safe spaces.
I love that you just said provoking people out of safe spaces, because it's true. When we stay kind of in this, safety, and I'm putting air quotes in the air, we have this complacency and we're not really actually living the lives that we have mocked up to live. And that's why everything feels hard and like full of effort. It's when you actually move through the shadowland, when you move through it, you gain such a different perspective to life. And I'm so honored, because when I found your work, I mean, long story short, if you haven't listened to the podcast episode we did on your podcast, please go do it. What is the name of that one? I'm just like blinking.
Yeah, the It's Karmic podcast.
It's Karmic podcast. We had an amazing collaboration, and how that started was I just slid into your DMs after learning about the Hades moon. And I would just love for you, because I know I have a lot of clients who are like, what is the Hades moon? And I did my best to like explain it, mainly because what we have learned now is like a double Hades moon, which makes a lot of sense. But how do you explain that to people who maybe don't have their hands in astrology yet? Like they're just looking at their natal chart.
Yeah, I like to start with kind of encompassing it as either the mother wound or the deeply emotional self-reclamation in this life. It's like if we're looking at the deepest of emotional scars, I mean, there's obviously a spectrum and so many, but this is one of the deepest ones related to mothering, nurturance, self love is really deeply embedded in this one, because it's so tied into abandonment and smothering and control and suffering. And the matriarchal line is that safety, truly, the moon is safety. It's our body, it's our past lives, it's what I call our emotional karma, and the mother being that container that's supposed to hold that space for us to be emotional beings. When we have the Hades moon in our charts, that doesn't happen. That safe space is stolen from us, whether it's through abandonment, detachment, or suffocation and control, right? And everyone experiences it on different levels and through that spectrum. And it can be both and none all at once. But that's where I really would begin to say it is like that ability to feel, to experience safety. And, I said, taking them out of safe spaces, it's like out of safe spaces in safe spaces, right? A safe space to hold you, to get you out of that safety that's been holding you hostage. And that's kind of like Pluto is the provoker. Again, provoking's coming in. That's going to rip you out of that space in order to heal you. So that's kind of how I would start on that conversation.
Well, thank you so much. And in just a second, I'm going to ask you just like, how do people find out if they have this placement in their chart? But before I ask you that, I just want to reflect too on this moment where I found this out about myself, like as a Scorpio moon. And I found your work, and it was like a year ago on TikTok, actually. And I was like, holy fuck, my life just changed because everything makes sense. And I have one of the deepest mother wounds of all time. My mother literally took her life. And before that, there was a deeply enmeshed relationship. There was a deep, her alcoholism, there was a deep codependence. So it was like a smothering as well. And when I found this out, I was like, as we'll talk more too about us both being emotional manifestors in just a moment, just a moment, you initiated a literal new, I want to say, legacy in my life, and like brought me into, a frame of what I'm here to do with that pain. And so I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Just casual.
You're so welcome. Just ripping the wound open, right? And I received that so deeply because I feel like that's what I'm meant to do. And sometimes, like as a manifestor, I don't really understand my work as an initiator. Sometimes I'm like, what do you mean? I just like open it and then, walk away, right? For everyone else to kind of do their work with what I initiate. So you just made things make a little bit of sense, right? It's like I put it out there, and then you, as the soul needing to receive that, takes it and does their work with it. So you just made something really land there for me. I'm like, oh, that's what it is.
I would say that, like, as a fellow manifester and living behind the walls of the closed aura, like, it is really hard to see ourselves and to see our impact. And that's why it's so vital to have like people who are cheerleaders in your life, because the work that we're here to do comes with a lot of persecution. It comes with a lot of having to be very grounded in what is right for us, though it may be going against the collective narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, being in friendship with you is so lovely because, I feel like it's rare to have another manifester woman in my life. And I just get to like see it. I'm like, holy fuck, like it's such a mirror to being like, oh, this is what I also do for people in my own unique way. And it's so deep. It's the most deeply penetrating, like, initiation into just a new vibrational essence, like where I feel like the manifestor's energy is almost like, come on my journey, at least for you and I, with like the deep Pluto energy.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's gonna die. Like everything's
Yeah.
dying.
Yeah.
And that can be done in a really safe way.
Yeah.
Held. You don't have to die alone, which is
Mm-hmm.
so important. Um, Before we get into even that, I'm jumping all over the place.
Okay.
I know people are probably really interested, like resonating with this energy of like, wow, I really have this deep mother wound, and I don't know what I'm here to do with it. I don't know why this has happened to me. And they found this podcast because they're like, wow, I really would like to be initiated because two manifestor women are getting together. And this is going to be so deeply potent. But how would somebody find out if they have this Hades moon placement?
Yeah. So, okay. If you have the Hades moon, there's a couple different things that you're going to look for. So first off, I'll just say the easiest way, do you have a Scorpio moon? That's your number one. Okay. Do you have a Scorpio moon? Do you have a moon in the 8th house? Okay, great. One and done. Doesn't matter what sign that moon in the 8th house is, it's still a Hades moon. Okay. So Hades moon, Scorpio moon, 8th house, Hades moon. There's your start. From there, you're going to look at aspects. So to make this easy, you're going to look at your moon and see, is there any line, I don't care what color that line is, between your moon and Pluto in your chart, okay? And then from there, you're kind of, if you go a little deeper and you're like, I know a little bit more about astrology, you can see what that line means. Is it a challenging line? Is it a kind of a lighter line? And lighter, I mean like a trine or a sextile. If that means nothing to you, throw it out. And if it does, that's more of a flowing energy, I'll say. Whereas, the square and there's the quincunx and the opposition, those are going to be a little bit more intense. Or is Pluto on top of your moon? Okay, so I work within 10 degrees of the moon personally. So you're going to look at your moon, say it's at 5 degrees Taurus. Is Pluto within 10 degrees of either side of that? Okay, so 5 degrees, so 15 degrees Taurus, or is it even all the way back to what's before Taurus, guys? Brain, Aries. 25 degrees Aries would still even, bring that Hades moon potency in. The closer Pluto gets to your moon, the more intense that wound gets. I know a lot of souls that have, their Pluto and their moon like 2 degrees apart, 1 degree apart, right on it. Whether it's in Scorpio, can be in Libra, depends what generation we're working with, but that's where you're going to start to look. And I'll make that a little, if anyone's like, what the hell did you just say? I'll give you the link to the blog that I have that can help you guys decipher this as well. There's some really juicy information in there on this exact placement.
That blog, like I spent days going through and just like being like, yeah, like thank you for having this information there. Yeah, I realized when you were talking that even if I went through Vedic, I have my moon in Libra in the 8th house.
Yeah.
So, it's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine.
And you know what? That's the thing when people are like, Vedic's right, Western's wrong. And I'm like, no, they all lead to the same story. Everybody needs to calm down, whether you're looking at astrology, Vedic, Western, human design, numerology, it's all going to tell you the same thing because you're speaking of the universal language. That's what you're doing, just in different forms. It's like speaking Spanish versus speaking Russian. You're going to get to the same place.
Yeah. I love it. And there's no need to like invalidate. It's just like we're all, getting what we need through how it shows up in our life. And that was a big moment for me. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like I knew I had a Scorpio moon. And I remember an astrologer didn't want to like scare me. So they like went into more of my Vedic chart and was like, oh, you have a Libra moon. I was like, no, I'm the Scorpio. Like I resonate with that so deeply, so much Scorpio. Yeah. And I'm just like, we don't have to run for that. And I know we talked about in the last podcast, you're like, I am a cheerleader for Scorpio energy because there's such a villainizer or a vilification of Scorpios. This is a Scorpio support group. I have so many clients with Scorpio moons. I find we all come together. The Hades moon, we should just have a club.
There should just be a club, honestly, because it's true. The attraction point of those who have it is wild. And you wouldn't believe how many people do actually carry this moon. And I'm not surprised when we look around at, even just in TV and stuff, the portrayal of mother-daughter relationships is always so extreme. And so it's like portrayed as this thing, right? That it's always this hard thing. And I think we're here to shift that narrative deeply.
Yeah. Well, we're already shifting it like just by having this conversation and just by like the women who are listening to this, like not feeling alone.
Yeah.
Like you survived your childhood and that was a massive initiation and we're glad you're here. Truly, because it took me a really long time to just kind of like step into my own manifestor energy and be like, all right, here I am. I'm being seen. Massive witch wound. But what has come from that is so much more connection, soul work, truth. And I'm so grateful for that. And you were just a massive initiator just in general. And that, like, here we go. Okay. So human design, here we go. I'm like, you're a massive initiator. Tell us, well, first of all, just for funsies, do you want to tell us like what your favorite astrology placements? I feel like I don't want to ask you what your big 3 are. Tell me what your favorite 3 astrology placements are in your chart.
Favorite 3. I love this. Yeah. Fuck the big 3. I mean, I love my big 3, but fuck them. Okay. So I dabble between I read in whole signs house system. I love whole signs. I find it extremely karmic. Long story short, when I started doing astrology full time, my mom gave me my wrong birth time. Okay. She gave me, it was 30 minutes off. So I had 10:30. You know what? It might not even have been her. It might have been me remembering it was 10:30. Either way. So this put me at a 2-degree Scorpio rising. And I was like, oh yeah, that's me. Pluto in the first house in whole signs. It all resonated. I was like, this is my soul. Then she comes, she finds my baby book. She's like, oh, hey babe, like it's 10 a.m. It's not 10:30. And I was like, no big deal, right? It's just half an hour. Big deal. So it put me back to a 26 degrees Libra rising, which actually makes so much sense for the amount of relationship karma I'm doing in this life. I am such a freaking Libra rising. It's okay. But then if we dive into progress charts, I was a progressed Scorpio rising by the time I was 5. It all resonates. So I dabble between these house systems because Placidus doesn't change my house systems. Okay. So when I read in Placidus, it looks the exact same way as if I was a 2-degree Scorpio rising. My brain goes, I like this, I get it. Whole signs is so karmic that every time I open it up for people, they're like, I don't like this. What have you done? You've moved my chart in a way that's like they don't understand, right? Because the typical chart reader is going to bring up that normal Placidus and they're going to be like, yeah, that's where everything is. So I love whole signs for that reason. That's my big preface.
She loves to trigger people.
I do. I love it. I love it. So my favorite number one placement is when I lean into my Placidus charts is that Pluto is in the first house. Now, my Pluto in the first house is what initiated me into this whole life. It's been doing that initiation work, constant death and rebirth. It is the leadership role that I've taken on, but it's also this deep, healing the trauma of rejection of self in this life. And it's actually what opened me to karmic astrology. When I started understanding my birth chart through my first mentor, she was like, oh yeah, just noted Pluto's in the first house. And I was like, why can't I look away from this? And Pluto started to speak through me in 2020 through that energy where he was like, we're going, like this is it. And I was like, okay, what are we doing here? So that Pluto in the first house was, I feel like, my initiation into doing my work that I was already touching, but I couldn't grab it yet. I couldn't grasp it yet until that moment where I was like, okay, this. So that's my I think one of my very favorite places, that Pluto in the first house, Placidus. From there, I am deeply obsessed with my North Node Imam Coeli conjunction, which has taken me a while to understand, because the Imam Coeli, for anyone who's listening, is your karmic roots. It's your ancestry. It's your lineage. It's the past. It's like the root system into karmic past and lineage past. It's all of it. And having your North Node there in Aquarius really speaks to being a liberator of the past, of karma. So when I look at that, I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally meant to work with past lives, karma, ancestry, all these things that I naturally was gravitating towards. So that was a huge link for me. That was a huge one. Yep. Love it. And now that I'm leaning into my whole signs chart more, I'm also deeply becoming obsessed with my Virgo stellium in the 12th house. It's super triggering.
Oh my God.
It's so triggering. And, I have a Leo stellium too, which isn't as triggering because I can live there really easily. Just the drama of it.
12th house though.
But the 12th house Virgo, it started to clarify my obsessive compulsive need to fix the world. Okay. I look out into the world. And so I've been really tapping into the 12th house as the house of undoing. It didn't resonate for years. And now I'm like, oh shit, I see it, right? Because my undoing is my obsession with fixing the external outside of me. Because I look out and I'm like, oh, y'all are broken. Everybody's broken out here. Let me fix you. Let me fix you. And now I look at it and I'm like, oh, I don't need to fix them. I just need to be like a guidepost for how to heal. So those, I think, are my number 3. I know for anyone listening that I went too deep into what the hell are those terms.
Loved it.
That's where I'm at.
Google it and it's fine.
Just
Google it. And
what is an Imam Coeli?
Yes, yes, you will be quizzed on that at the end.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
absolutely. I have a quiz waiting.
Everyone's literal like school anxiety just got triggered. Oh, yeah, I can imagine too, like just as you talked about that. I think our charts find us where we are. And there was probably a part of you, and I know we've kind of talked about like just where you were at, like in that point, I just kind of see it where you were like, I'm a bad bitch. And like, I have to have Scorpio rising energy.
Mhm.
And like, I can't be like in my feminine energy. Like, there was that protective scorpionic energy, and that was
100%.
serving you really, really well. And I totally see the Libra. I do. I
Yeah,
do.
she's there. It all made sense, but you're so right. Like the way I was portraying myself, the energy I was giving off, it was hard. It was intense. Like I've always had like this mix of rock star meets like overly like glamorous girl. That's kind of been a vibe. It's very, Leo moon, Leo cluster guys. But when I looked at that Libra, I was like, oh, that's something that I've been, it's always been there, but I've been protecting it. I've been, there has been a shell around it. And when we look back, this is what's so cool about the layers of charts. It's like, yeah, that progression into Scorpio rising happened at 5. That's when shit got real in my life. Okay. Parents divorce, very intense. The whole world fell apart. Up until then, I was just jamming out as a Libra rising, having a great time.
Harmony,
Right.
balance,
So
beauty, aesthetics. Yeah.
yeah, and then I had to put that armor on real fast. So you're right
Mhm.
that that protection when I leaned into it, I was like, yeah, this is so me because I've lived in this space, this progressed space since I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. I hear that so deeply as I've just really started being a 3-degree Leo sun. I've just
Mm.
really started my Virgo progression. Like I'm 3 degrees Virgo right now. I'm the biggest fucking Virgo. Like I really, really denied this part of me. But if you're ever in a relationship with me, I am just like, there's a constant need to like perfect things. And I'm just like, oh, wow, there's like a big perfectionism in here that I didn't see. And Virgo is inviting me deeply to connect with the nature of all the things. And
Mm.
I'm loving this moment. It's helping me organize so much in my life. But yeah, a lot changed for me as I was, the shiny Leo sun. And then now I'm like Virgo, I'm like hard work and, all the good stuff. So yeah, those progressions are, and I have a progressed Sagittarius moon. So I'm just like, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
The Scorpio
Yeah.
moon of the early childhood, also 3-degree moon in
Hmm.
Scorpio. You know, Spirit loves me because Pluto is 22 degrees Scorpio and my moon is 3. He didn't, push.
Yeah, not right on there.
Pluto decided not to triple Hades moon me. And I really,
Thank you.
my God, thank you,
Thank you,
God.
Pluto.
Sometimes I look at Pluto and, most of the women listening to this probably have Pluto in Scorpio, just the generational, or,
Yeah.
Pluto in Libra, because it's such a generational thing. So that's very normal. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
There you
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
Okay. So we're going to switch over from astrology, which you and I'll talk to you all day about it. I just
All
love
day.
to just learn about like your own perspective of your chart. I think it's so fascinating. You can learn so much about yourself, we're
Mhm.
gonna talk about human design, and we have a lot like, okay, so we were just talking about your progressed Scorpio rising and kind of your parents' divorce. And we voice memo so much because it's just amazing. We have a good time and we're always kind of like processing things together. It's sweet because we're like, wow. And I think it's really healing because I haven't ever had like a manifestor sister who gets it. You know, you sent me a meme or you posted a meme on your story and it was like, no one understands. What did it say? It's like,
It said something along the lines of, okay, let's get it.
yeah,
Let's get it
let's
for
get it.
everyone so we can quote it properly.
We're going to quote it.
Quote it.
Something about threatening, being
Hmm.
threatened by the manifestor aura.
Okay, come on, phone. Why you gotta be like this? There's something along the lines of realizing all your problems. Or, come on, phone. Why are you
It was
like
like
this?
realizing all of your trauma comes from people who are threatened by your manifestor aura.
Yes, it was. I think that's exactly what it was. There we go. Okay, here. Oh, here we
She's
go.
getting it.
Okay,
She's getting it.
she's getting real life, guys. When you realize that most of your trauma was because people were threatened by your manifestor aura.
Yes.
Yes.
When I found out I was a manifestor, I cried for like 3 weeks.
Really?
Every single time I was bullied, rejected, exiled, all made sense in one single moment.
Mm.
I remember having the reading done. I remember my brain neural pathways restructuring. I felt it. And I was like, what the absolute fuck? And I have a Leo sun. So of course I was like, I'm going to get off by being a rare type. But like, it just, people like what I want to like share is like, it's not necessarily about, there's a shadow that comes from being a manifestor archetype that I'd like to talk about, because a lot of people are like, oh, I want to have all these rare placements or the best placements. And personally, I don't believe the manifestor is the easy journey you want. The manifestor archetype is really basically the plutonic journey. It is
True.
the leadership journey. Like we're leading through with the machete, the underworld, to bring something new from there. It's not like, oh, I hang out with angels today, which sometimes I do, but it's that cosmic connection. The cosmic gives us a little mission. We go on it. It's usually unsettling. And then we bring it to the collective. And what was
Yeah.
it like for you when you learned that you were a manifestor?
Okay, so when I first learned, I didn't do it in a reading or anything like that. I wish I had, but it was just like someone brought it up and I was like, what is this? And they were like, oh, you're a manifestor. You're so special. Like you're so rare. Da da da. And I have like 27,000 placements in Leo. If you Alexandra has seen my chart, it's intense. So I was like, yeah, look at me. I'm so special. I'm not shocked. Like no, I didn't say this outwardly, but inside, there was all this ego being like, yeah, look at me. So I thought I was like the gift to the universe, or the gift to myself, essentially at that point, being like, I can manifest anything. I can have anything I want, which was, the unhealed version of the delivery for me back then. This was like, I don't even know, 2017, 2016. This wasn't commonly talked about. And I'm like, okay, if I'm a manifestor and I can manifest anything and I can have anything I want, why is it so hard to do this, this, and this? I've manifested an insanely intense music career. I've worked with the top artists. I've been on the top shows. I can do things like that. We talked about this in my session with you, right? Where I can manifest crazy things. But like, why can't I manifest a home or safety or security or enough money in the bank to like, not feel worried? Even no matter how much money I put in the bank, I'm still worried, guys. So this is like, something I was like, if I'm a manifestor, then why is it not working? What am I doing wrong? So I started to put all this pressure on myself of like, I must not know how to be one, or I'm doing it wrong. And then years and years and years later, only in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, I started working with true human design coaches and leaders and readers, where I was like, oh, it's not actually like that, right? It's actually so much deeper. And I wasn't told about the rejection piece. I wasn't told about, being the outsider, which the astrology opened for me, where I was like, oh yeah, there's my outsider. There's my black sheep. There's my outlier energy, rejection, persecution. Got it. But nobody told me that in human design. Right. And so when I started to peel that back, I had that moment that you had where I was like, that's why I have felt like this my whole life. And then add that to a Leo stellium and this constant desire to be special, famous. I want to be famous since I came out the womb. Right? Like thinking I am special. And I have a mother that confirmed, you're so amazing. You're the most special thing in the whole world, God's gift to the world. And then the world constantly rejecting me, right? Saying, oh, you're second best. Oh, you're going to be the second best in the play. You'll be the understudy. You'll be the second choice in the choir. You'll be the backup. This is my whole life, right? So
Oh
when I
my
started,
gosh.
yeah, this is my whole life. And so when I got to this piece where I was like, oh, I actually have this repelling energy. I was like, that is why when my best friends, when I met her, for years, she had known who I was. She's a year younger than me. So in high school, she's like, I saw you every day and you look like such a fucking bitch. And I was like, I'm the nicest person.
Like, please love me.
Right. But I gave off this energy and I like, that was me, in high school. It was like, get the fuck away from me. She was like, I
Mm,
could not approach you till we ended up working together. And she's like, oh, you're actually really nice because of that repellent. Right. But nobody explained that to me. Things would have been very different if someone had told
mm.
me that at 12 years old.
I just want to like tell all the manifestor children like it's gonna be okay, and
Gonna be
to
okay.
understand too like that repelling people is a really good thing.
Yeah.
But at that moment when you're in your adolescence and you just want to be loved, and even now, I'm sorry, like at 30, I'm like, I just want to be loved. You just want to be connected with. It took me like a year of healing this energy of like there's a wall between me and everyone else and I'm so alone, and like the stories like I'm so ostracized from community and all that kind of stuff. But I also believe I would put on stage performances as a child. It's just Leo sun things.
Hmm.
It's Leo sun things, and the world is quite a humbling place for a manifester. And I don't think that people understand that or have compassion for it, because we often turn into the scapegoat. It's very easy, and it's not like a fifth line thing. At least I'm a second line, so I do have a projection field, but manifestors are the easy. Okay, so like the picture that I'm seeing for you when you were talking about this, and I love a visual, is like imagine a world where we've had the kings and they've ruled for a really long time. And so then the people were like, we want to be involved, which is the generators. And we're like, okay, great. But like, what does that mean? Challenging leadership. And so the leadership changed to a council of projectors, generators, maybe one manifestor here and there. All of those manifestors had to go through a growth period of like, where the fuck do I belong in this sauce? Most of those manifestors went on their own lone wolf journey outside of the kingdom. Now we're coming back and we're like, people are so fucking afraid we're going to challenge what they've created. And we are.
Absolutely.
So like
Every day.
it's like I always say the deepest journey for, and some manifesting generators, if you're listening to this, might relate because you do have the manifestor parts as well. But it's like developing your self-worth enough to stand at the fucking gate and be like, I'm coming in. This is what's happening. And if you want to come on the journey, or it's more like you're coming out of your kingdom, we're going to go on a journey through the desert. I've done it before because I had to. And if you want to come, you're coming. Commit to it. That's it.
Yeah, I like that resonates deeply, especially for those who are, you know, metaphorically living in that kingdom, not loving it, right? Like if we think about society right now, people are like, this isn't working. And manifestors come along and they're like, let me show you the way. But people are like, but how? I don't trust you. I don't trust that there's anything outside of this. I don't trust that we can survive if the way you're going, because I don't know what that is. And, as a manifestor, I'm like, just come with me. Life can be different. You don't have to work a 9 to 5 you hate. You don't have to, eat food that is poisoned. You don't have to do all these things that society has deemed normal. You can go a different way. And that's really hard for people who have been sitting in safety for a long time.
Taking a moment there to like let that land. I find myself often feeling so frustrated in the lack of people wanting to take that step. And I also have had to let that go, right? Like we're not here to heal the world. There's so much responsibility, energy I feel like I've carried as a manifestor to initiate.
Yeah.
And I took it so seriously for like so many years that I wouldn't let anyone else initiate me. And that was so fucking exhausting. I had no support. My relationship struggled. So everything is nuanced. Everything is
Everything.
nuanced.
Yeah.
And, when I reached out to you, I felt your aura and I said, oh, fuck. So I know what it's like. I can only experience it through another manifestor, right?
100%.
And I was like, she's gonna think I'm so weird. Like, right. She's gonna think I'm so fucking weird, but I don't care because I gotta do it. I
You just
felt
got to do it.
when you have a manifestor urge,
You
you
have to
cannot
follow
stop it. Like it's not stoppable. It feels like this sensation through your body that you will continue to think about for like you can't
forever.
stop it until it just happens.
You're right.
You're
You're
like
bang on.
forever. I'm like,
You will sit with
ah,
that. There are urges like I have this urge to one day be a DJ and I have an urge to one day produce music and like they sit in me and like they rear their heads all the time and I'm like is it time, but I fluctuate between who do I be right now, do I follow this urge, do I not, but they'll sit in a manifestor for years like dormant. It could happen when you're 5. If you don't follow through it's still gonna like be like go go go. And I feel you on the aura thing because I was saying this to you the other day about my husband, and I didn't connect the dots why I couldn't understand. Like sometimes he'll sit there. So for everyone listening, my husband's a manifestor as well, emotional manifestor, 2-4. I'm a 6-2.
we
So
all have
luckily,
projection fields.
yeah, luckily we're both hermits, so that helps. But he'll, will sit in a space, and I will not be able to read him. And for years, I've been frustrated. Now I get angry. I get filled with rage. And so I'll have like a mental breakdown being like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What the hell's going on? Because I can't penetrate and understand that. Are you happy? Are you sad? Like I'll give him a gift. A gift is a great example. I'll give him a gift that I'm so freaking excited about. And he'll be like, thank you so much. And he'll receive it. And then it turns like to manifestor aura. And I'm like, anyone? Hello? Hello? And I have a mental breakdown about like the energy I've given into that, the thought I've given into that, and not receiving what I think I should receive because his aura is not giving me anything. And that's what it's like being with manifestor.
Shit, I'm like just having so much compassion for anyone who's ever been a partner to me because like truly they've always needed a lot of reassurance and I just like don't give it.
No. And I do
I'm
it
just like,
back, right?
yeah,
Like,
I'm just like, cool. Like, or,
cool.
I can be very
Right.
Leo and very like cheerleader but like the second that I'm not, like that wall, people are so uncertain. They don't understand. They're like, what is
It's
she
very
thinking?
uncomfortable.
What am I
Yeah.
gonna get? And so I'm like, let me ride my wave. Let me be over here
Mhm,
in my
mhm.
corner. Um,
Yeah, like I'll even say at the start of our friendship, I had a moment where I was like, does she want to talk to me? Like she's not responding as quick as I think she should. And I was like, oh no. And then I had this beautiful reflection moment where I was like, oh, no, no, no. I just can't feel her aura. Like I can't touch
oh,
you. So I'm doubting myself in our friendship, which like is such a
oh my
weird
gosh.
moment.
Thank you for sharing
Right?
it.
You're welcome. It was just like this quick hit right at the beginning, which is it's also part of my feminine wounding, my sister wounding, my mother wounding, all the energy, right? Where I was like, what if she doesn't actually love me as much as she thought she would, right? And I had to
Mm.
feel, but I sat with it and I was just like, no, I just can't feel her the way I can feel other people. And then I was like, oh, that's me. Cool, great. And I just sat back and I was like, she'll come when she's ready. And like 2 seconds later, you're like, hi. So it's like the stories we tell ourselves, we almost reflect our own rejection back into our field.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely see that too. And I see, so like even on like an energetic, like when people are interacting with me, like I have these energy tools, right? To where you're not actually able to, I'm a manifestor. And then on the next level of it, I don't leave my energy lingering in people's auras the way that we're taught to
Ditto.
communicate.
Ditto.
And
There's a
so,
constant
yeah,
protection.
there's a constant like, well, I'll pull it back and I'll give them back theirs. So people are often
Mm.
like, wait, I feel disconnected from you. And I'm like, oh, because I'm not healing you. Like
Mm.
it's this interesting energy that kind of comes out. And I'm just like, what amazing insight that you had for yourself. And like, you're like, hold on, why isn't she replying? I just like,
Yep, just gonna sit with it. Cool, great. Whereas if it was someone else, right, non-manifestor, I'd be able to feel. I'd be
yeah,
like, either they're in or they're out. Great, that energy's like solid or it's not. And then
yeah,
I'll detach, like, I can be quite an asshole. I'll just be like, hey, ghost, like, we're done, right? Because
yeah.
the energy's not fed in the right way. Whereas with you is a great lesson in like, no, you actually have no idea right now.
and you just sit in
Cool.
that discomfort.
Cool.
Gosh. We're like, yes, be friends with us. And also it will show you, initiate you
Literally.
in a lot of different ways. Yeah.
I've had so many friends where I've had to say, I've gotten to this point, thank God, where, you know, if you can't hold space for me to be my manifestor self, we're not going to work, which means I'm going to cancel on you. I'm going to cancel plans because I'm tired. It's going to happen. I'm
Yeah.
going to cancel plans because my energy's not right that day. I'm going to cancel plans because I have to nap that day. You won't see me for 2 years, but I'll still love you from over here, right? Like I'm a 2 line and a 6 line. So I'm super isolated. But you know, all of my best friends, which there are many at this point, but they're all over the world, understand that that's how I function. And then I've had people come into my field where I'm like, hey, not feeling energetically aligned today. Can we just like rain check? And it's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'll have to be like, I don't think this friendship's going to work because you can't hold space for who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that so deeply. I hear that so deeply. I find it in a lot of my friendships that, you know, so much is transforming in my female space in general. And like it's reflected in friendship and work and things like that, that, you know, I have dimmed my manifestor self to accommodate a lot of generator energy. Because if you've ever been in a relationship with a generator, when a generator's upset, the whole fucking world ends. Like generators are either like have the energy to do something based on a response or they don't. So like there tends to be the manifestor, I'm going to initiate, and if you're going to go, I'm going to have to tweak my manifestation in order to make it work for you. Stop doing that. You know, a lot of human beings with that second line, what do I want to say about this? I will literally leave the face of this earth in a deep underworld journey for like 3 weeks at a time. And so
Minimum.
my boyfriends, my friendships in the past have always been like, when you do that, it leaves this like massive energetic hole, right? Because I've been holding space for them. I've been doing all these things, which I'm really working through now. Like I am not my friend's therapist, right? Like, you know, there's a level to communicate. I love to hear my friends' stories. I want to know what's happening in their lives. But, you know, before I was kind of space holding in like keeping them from their own shit. And so I had to realize that this year is like, you know, I go through an underworld journey every Scorpio season. It is a fucking shitstorm. It's my mom's birthday. It's the anniversary of her death. It's all coupled in like fucking Scorpio season. And, you know, a lot of people like to poke into my field, like, you're not paying attention to me. And I'm informing them, like, I tell everyone months in advance, Scorpio season, don't fuck with me. Don't fuck with me unless you are my partner and we're having sex. Like, that's it. And there was just, you know, we had some eclipses right in that energy field. And it was just, it was fascinating to see how, you know, before I was really out of that, out of my own frequency because I was accommodating a lot of people in my aura. And when I started to create those boundaries, people were pissed. Because, you know, what I see with the kind of generator manifestor, even for like whatever, like codependency in general, is that I would need my own space because I'm a second line, and I wasn't available to solve their problems or be their psychic anymore. And they didn't like it. And I was like, oh, you know, I think the world right now, most women are going through growth periods with that sister wounds. Like, what does it look like? You know, we've all been through so much and we all need support. We all deserve support. And what does it look like to hold that space for our friends and also like have boundaries? I struggle with that too. And I just want to be in a place where, and most of my friendships now really, really vibe with it. Where they're like, oh, she's going on another journey. There she goes. Bye-bye.
Literally.
Because you know, when I'm in my own work, when I'm doing my own really deep shadow work, I can't have anyone else around me. Like, because They're throwing
No.
shit at my aura. Like it's almost like when I get around someone else, they have something for me to initiate for them. And I'm like,
Oh, you're so right.
ew. I'm like,
You just gave
stop.
me a big aha moment too, as to why Josh is the only person I've been able to live with my whole entire life because he's not throwing shit at me.
I've lived with many generators,
Wow.
and I would be in my room. Okay. And I had a really dear friend I lived with. She was a generator, and she would walk by and her aura would throw, I need this, initiate this, because they're always looking for a response. Their fields are like sponging
Mm,
responses, and it would pull me out of my shit. And I'd be like, fuck, there it goes again. And then I would
literally.
initiate for her. And I was like, this is really draining. Like, how can I? So now I live alone. It's very nice. I deeply love it.
That's like, and it's so funny that you're saying this because I've always lived alone outside of living with my mom. Always, always, always till Josh. Other than one person I lived with was for 4 months, a guy. I don't know what the fuck he was, but that was not a great situation. And his existence annoyed me. His very existence in my space drove me to insanity. And when I was little, I don't know if you resonate with this. So I'm a highly sensitive person. When I was little, I'd be in my bedroom, okay? And the very sound of my mom existing outside of my bedroom would drive me to madness. Like, have you ever seen that movie, Diary of a Mad Black Woman? I was her. It's such a good movie. So I was like the mad Black woman in this movie, just like losing my mind, but she had right in that movie to be mad. I did not. It was the very existence of my mother being in her own house that would send me over the and I used to wake up in the morning and I'd be like, don't talk to me, don't look at me, don't breathe near me, don't exist in my field for approximately 2 hours. Like that was
Literally I am a grump in the morning. Literally my life. And then there's this like also, no, if my mom breathed near my door
yes.
was shut. I was like, I can't have my door shut now because I have cats and they will flip the fuck out. So even their auras, I'm like, get the fuck away from me.
Fuck out. The fuck
But
That's so funny too, because I say all the time, I don't know my dog's birthday. He's a rescue. But all the time I'm like, you're a manifester. He is a manifester. And so him and Josh are the only two people in the world that don't bother me. And they're not throwing anything at me. You just
I
literally connected all the dots, guys. This is what happens. Everyone
this is what
listening to
happens.
manifestors.
I was just like, everyone wants something from me. They see my aura and they know I can do shit for them. They know that they want whatever I have to initiate. They want something to respond to. So they're always like, we call it attention points in the aura. They're
Mm,
lighting up all these attention points and it's so fucking distracting. And I'm like, why can't I get anything done? And so I've had to
right.
really learn how to have tools, like energy tools around that, because though I have a closed aura, they're still lighting me up. Like it's
Mm.
annoying. So I'm like, ew.
Which is
Also,
exactly why you created Resource,
yeah,
because
but
you had
exactly
all this shit coming at you.
all the time. They're like, oh, she's powerful. I want her energy. I want this. And I still like have a lot of that coming in towards me. It's wild. And I'm also like, that's how generators know how to do it.
Right.
It's not
Right.
their fault. It's not a bad
It's just
thing.
how their energy works. Yeah, that makes complete sense. They're looking for that energy exchange, right? Whereas we're just happily in our field.
And it's like, too, when you're kind of being with another manifester. I also have lived with other, archetypes like manifesting generators. And, I've never been so annoyed when a manifesting generator tries to initiate me. I'm like,
No, no.
that's not it. Like,
Mm-mm.
that's not it.
Yeah,
So
no, don't ever try to initiate a
it's
manifester.
just,
That's one of the like grossest energies.
it's just the sickest thing I've ever, like, I'm like, yeah, like I know it sounds really weird, but it's like it has to kind of be my idea, or it has to be
I
something
know.
that piques my interest, and then I will initiate how I want to do it, or like etc. And that sounds really fucking audacious, and it is, and I'm just gonna own it because
It's okay.
I'm also thinking too of like that grumpy little morning Grinch that I used to be, and that I'm hearing you have similar qualities of. Really competed with my Leo sun because I always
Mm,
was projected on being a happy little like fairy girl or whatever the fuck.
yeah.
And I was such a bitch. I was like literally like still to this day at like I work at as like my part-time security, like working at this place where I have to be there at 8 a.m. And like I really struggle until like 9:30 to like be here in my body. Like I'm like, everyone's all
Yeah.
like fucking working out. I'm like, ah.
It's a lot. That is a lot. I feel that deeply in the sense of like being very grateful that I don't have to go to a job anymore
Yeah.
because I am self-sustainable, thank God, and thriving, thank God, after all these years. Because when I think about those energies of having to show up in a space and be like on, I remember my one boss used to be like, you gotta leave it at the door. And I'd be like, I can't leave anything at the door right now. And I would, right? I'd turn it on and turn on the charm when I was bartending and serving and turn it on. But I'm so thankful I don't have to do that anymore. I think that's huge for a manifestor to be able to be in your own space, be a hermit, be a weirdo. Don't adhere to anybody's rules ever. And I know it takes forever to get there, depending on the sport you have, depending on what's going on in your life. But working toward that as a manifestor, it's gonna be key.
This part-time job, kind of a funny little journey for me. Like in the beginning, I was a photographer and I had a really amazing photography company. So I haven't worked for anyone since probably 2014. That was my last
Wow.
little job before having this business. And then I took a few years off. My mom passed. There was a lot of karma that just came out. And I was like, well, here we go. Got to face it head on.
Yeah.
As I was kind of finalizing my divorce, I was like, fuck. And this opportunity came up. And what's interesting about the karma of it is that Spirit always told me, like, you're going to have I don't like being in my own space is where I make the most money because I'm able to sit and I'm able to be in my own flow. I eat breakfast at like whenever I fucking want. I like doing whatever the fuck I want.
Mm-hmm.
But with this process, like really Saturn, like post Saturn return, Saturn on the ascendant,
Mm,
health, getting my shit together, like getting, having more responsibility. Spirit was kind of challenging this picture because I manage a whole studio. Spirit was like, how much can you hold?
right.
And I was like, fuck. And it's so hard for me because I have Saturn in the 12th. Responsibility is like something I'm just like, it's an
Mm,
Aquarius too. So I'm so rebellious against it. So,
100%.
so I'm just like, ew. And so I'm like having to hold these like positions. And I'm like, and yeah, there's going to be a time. I know it's a season, but there'll be a time too coming rather quickly where I'm like in my flow again. So I'm like
Oh
honoring
yeah.
the shadowland. And it's been actually a really beautiful position, but I'm like, some days I'm like, I miss doing only what I wanted. And I'm like, also like, sometimes we have to leave that castle and go into a new one. I'm like, no. To wrap that up, the main thing we wanted to talk about as we just like get to manifest or like love on each other, because we're like, I know you've had a hard time, it's been hard, and like
I see you.
I see you and I know that you can't feel what I'm feeling, but like here we are, and I'm so grateful for you in my life. And
Ditto.
we're gonna talk about a little sticky energy today.
Mm.
Ooh. Ooh,
Mhm.
everyone's like, wait, this hasn't been sticky yet. We're like, no, it's gonna get stickier. um we were kind of relating in voice memo about this idea of that people being threatened by the manifestor aura. And we were talking about our stepmothers.
Mm.
I'm scared. And the idea too, and as we opened up container to have this conversation, Lilith was really here and like holding that space. Because when I kind of explain my own experience, having a stepmom to anyone, they're like, we really had like kind of this Cinderella situation happening. And I was like, yes, I did.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you feel similar to that? Or like what has been your story? And I guess the theme of this is like, I feel like the manifestor child, when not allowed freedom, becomes the scapegoat and the person persecuted most. And even if you're not a manifestor, women who are powerful get pushed down and abused
Mhm.
by other women.
Mhm. 100%.
And
Yeah,
it's
and
like
that's
Leo
exactly how it's
karma.
been. Yeah.
Fucking Leo karma.
Leo karma, seriously, and like the Scorpio shit too is in there, and it's been exactly, the Cinderella story 100%, minus, in the Cinderella story, dad wasn't there, but in, most of our stories, dad was there, but he either chooses that person over you,
Mm.
or he just isn't conscious to what's happening is another frequency that occurs in that space too. So that's mine was sort of a blend of both. And no, my dad and I have a very beautiful surface level relationship. We talk every week on what is it called? Video chat. Um, but very surface level. He's very hard to access. He has a lot of Scorpio placements and he's very hard to get to, right? But a Leo sun and all these Leo placements. So he's an interesting mix of that too. But it's been, you know, that being not chosen as the first soul, and not that you should be the top of the top. There should be like no hierarchy, right? When it comes to daughter and the woman in your life. And yet, with most people in the stepmom situation, when there's a wound, she is at the top and you are sort of floating beneath her.
Yeah. This really came up for me when I was on my trip with my partner for the holidays. Cause family wounding, whether you're with your partner's family, you're like, there's just all of that wounding. And my sweet little inner child was like, came to me and she was just crying. And like, it came out as anxiety, first of all. Like, our inner children crying internally doesn't really it's not like, oh, I just started crying. It was like, no, she was like, I'm fucking triggered.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this part that was like, came up for me. I was like, everyone doesn't want me here. I will be blamed if anything goes wrong on this trip. And I am not worthy of receiving this amount of wealth in my life, these three kind of things. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And all of a sudden, a picture of a vacation that I had been on with my dad and my stepmom came up. And she had looked at me, and mind you, both her and my dad were drunk. I didn't drink at this time. I was like in my late 20s. I was married. I had she looked at me and she probably would never remember this, because I think most of the people in our lives who are cruel to us are actually channeling beings.
Oh, interesting.
We can talk more about that.
Mm.
Channeling beings who know exactly how to fucking get to us.
Mm.
It's the trance mediumship wound. We can talk
Interesting.
more about that's a whole fucking cake.
It's a whole
But
podcast.
it's a whole podcast. And so there was this moment where she looked at me after she had had an emotional reaction. She literally physically hurt my father, literally smacked, punched him in the face. I think he was bleeding. It was wild.
Wow.
She looks at me and she goes, this is all your fucking fault because you're here. And I was like, and that about sums up my childhood trauma. I'm like, there it is. And, from that moment, I was just like, this woman will never my dad looked at me, and because he looked at me with compassion, I just saw the energetic block of she will never let us, because she's an insecure Leo moon. She'll never allow my father and I to have a connection. And so then the energy around my dad and the energy that comes up for me and where I get triggered most in life is when men are passive. When men
Yes.
don't
Oof.
fucking hold that protector archetype for me, if a man is passive around an abusive energy, my inner warrior comes out. You want to see fucking Lilith rising? I will take down. And the thing about it is that we often don't work through energy when we're in resistance to it. So when I bring out that fucking fierce warrior woman, it actually escalates the situation too much. And then it's like, fuck. All right. So
Yeah.
that's my experience.
Ooh, that's deep. And you just hit
Casual.
something. You hit something there that I hadn't thought about, that triggers me with I love my husband. I'm going to preface with that. I love him so much. He's the best in the whole world, angel from heaven. But when he gets into passive spaces, I get really aggressive, and I'll be like, why didn't you stand up for me there? Like, why didn't you have my back there? And you just really brought to the surface where that anger comes from, because it's absolutely irrational.
No, it's rational because
It's rational,
it's
yeah. But the
protecting
feeling is
you.
irrational.
Yes. But it's
The rage is,
protection.
yes,
Yeah.
you're so right. It's the protection. So you just hit something very deep there of, yeah, that was very much My father, you know, he did his best, as all our parents did, but there was so much that I was like, why aren't you standing up for me? Why are you just so passively, you know, my dad, I think if I was to look into his energy field, I'd be like, he really values peace to the point of not rocking any boats.
Mm.
And I've always been a boat rocker, even though I value peace. So it's been interesting. So you just really hit something where I'm like, yeah, like that's a huge trigger point for me because like why didn't you protect me? Right? Why didn't you fight for me?
Yeah.
Mm.
Just taking a moment here because I'm sure so many women relate with that. Like, you know, my dad didn't protect me. So I had to, that rage, you know, is unconscious, but that rage is also actually not yours.
Right.
It's an energy you've made an agreement with to come into your body to protect you.
To protect you. It's armor.
It's
It's
armor.
armor.
And people constantly are like, that's why there's a dissonance
Mm.
because that rage doesn't feel like us and it doesn't move. You know, like our
Yeah.
feelings move. When I'm angry, it moves, but it's a stand-in. I like to call it like an imaginary friend as a kid that we brought in, an
Mm.
out-of-body energy that we brought into our field to protect us from persecution,
Right.
to protect us, especially as, you know, young women who have an enormous amount of light, an enormous amount of light.
Yeah.
You're going to attract people who are shadowed as fuck and
Mm-hmm.
cannot have that. That's the lesson because it's like I would come up on my stepmom's aura and just could you imagine? Like I have so much compassion for her, and I am the reason she doesn't have what she has, but yet
Mm.
she has it. I never got it. And so there was this moment on this vacation that I went on, and I'm just going to be really honest here, where I like looked at my partner. I was like, are you going to fucking choose me? Like, and I had to sit with that for a second because, you know, in some ways, like I want to validate my inner child wanting my partner to like be in at like a match to me. And in other ways, I was still perpetuating her shit.
Mm.
Like still perpetuating the I want to be chosen by my dad, that wound, because I never was. It would always be her first. I watched from a distance him buy her cars, buy her Louis Vuitton, support her completely financially. Um, you know, and I'd ask for things and it would be a no. It would be a no. It would be a no. And then I talked to my dad, you know, after many years of therapy, and I was like, why? And his answer is like, you know, it made you who you are. Like it made you a tough woman. I said, I'm not a fucking tough woman. I'm
Mm.
traumatized,
Mm.
dad. Like I don't want to be a tough woman. I don't want to have to own that because you had a tough childhood. I wouldn't want my daughter to come to me and be like, I'm a tough child. What the fuck?
Mm.
Like she was like beaten down with like one of those meat tenderizers. Like that's, and my dad's a Capricorn, so it's so fucking Saturn. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck you, Saturn. Like, but also
I
love you,
feel
Saturn.
that. No, yeah, like I feel that my dad has a heavy Virgo signature in his chart as well.
Mm.
Leo sun, but like this cluster of Virgo. And yeah, I feel that very my dad played the role of Saturn in my life. Um, in many ways. In many other ways he played other things, but he definitely played the role of Saturn in my desire to succeed, my desire to shine, my desire to be special is all linked into him. Not feeling good enough is linked into him and linked into her because my story with my stepmom is very linked into her denial of my Aquarian nature. So me being different was unacceptable. And I've always been different, right? And me being unique was unacceptable. Me falling out of line of societal norms was unacceptable. The way I live my life, if anyone's listening, I live very differently. I don't eat what traditional people eat. I don't eat out. I don't go to restaurants. Um, I don't wear like the same, like I'm very conscious about what goes on my body, what goes in my body. Everything is organic, everything is clean. My skin products, I like my skin products are beef tallow. Like that's what I rub on my body,
You
right?
know I
Like,
have some beef tallow in
yeah, you
my
do, right? Like
inside.
I don't live within the grid of society. I think society is sick. And and I mean, when I say sick, I mean ill. And that has always been, a frequency of mine to be the outlier, which we've already talked about with the manifestor. I am, and I have a highly Aquarian signature. I don't live within the realm of society. That was extremely triggering for her. So she would roll her eyes at me when I spoke. She would go,
Wait, I'm triggered.
okay, okay. That was her energy at me. She'd roll her freaking eyes, tisk at me, and say, okay, all right, sure, sure.
I'm so triggered.
So this is
Literally.
my stepmom's energy, right? And then add to that my dad, bringing that Saturnian energy where I wanted to be a singer-songwriter when I was a kid. When I was 15, he looked at me and went, I'll believe it when I see it. That was what he brought to the
Damn
table.
it.
Right? So she's over there rolling her eyes at me saying, you're one in a million, you're nothing special. Who do you think you are? Put it away, dim. And so I shrunk, never spoke up to her, never said a bad thing to her, never. I would just go into my shell. I would just quiet myself when I was there. I wouldn't speak. I I would do nothing, to the point where my stepsister got the brunt of her anger. So my stepmom's a very angry person, abusive, angry, same as yours. The hitting, the aggression. So my stepsister got all of that. And I just learned from my stepsister that I would be in my room. Apparently, I was probably like 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And for no reason, I was not a bad kid. I was a good kid, especially at my dad's house.
Mm-hmm.
He would come storming down, apparently, in a fit of rage. And my stepsister would have to stand in front of my door and take the hit, take the abuse, so that she couldn't come in and hit me. Which thank God she did, because my mother would have murdered that woman. But I never knew that my stepsister literally, it's like making me tear up right now, but she
Yeah.
literally would stand in front of the door and be like, you don't touch her. You don't touch her.
Breathing into
So I had
that.
no idea that there was like a protector there, and that this woman actually wanted to physically harm me. I had no
Yeah.
idea, right? And so, ooh, emotional guys, listen to the real stuff. And my squeaky chair, if you can hear it. But that was like, the energy of her anger at me for
Mhm.
existing. I did nothing wrong. I was quiet around her. I was not a quiet kid, and I was not a good kid. Like, I was a good kid, but I was a rebel, right? But
Mhm.
I put that on the back burner when I was there, because the fear and terror she put inside of me. And yeah, it was all around me being different.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
lit up all the things she didn't want to look at in herself.
Yeah.
And just being with that for a moment. Like just want to like sit for just a moment too, if you want to have any emotion wants to come up or anything like that too, because like that is deeply scary for a little girl.
Yeah, it was
And
wild.
to, imagine this relationship you have with your stepdaughter who or stepsister who kind of stepped in and
Mhm.
protected you. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that made me feel emotional as well.
Yeah, and she really took, that's her mother. And we talk about it still. Like, she's like, yeah, that's what I'm with, right? She has to live with that intensity in that form of mother-daughter, and it's so much heavier than the stepmother.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. My stepmother, one time we lived next door and I was never allowed to call my mom for help from their house. I would get deeply punished because, of course, I
Mm-hmm.
was never allowed. There was never a level of responsibility for her actions that she could take. She always had to be very Leo moon, like, I am perfect, right?
Yep. Yep.
Cancer sun. And I remember I really, really wanted a pair of Puma shoes for Christmas. All the girlies had them. I really wanted to belong. All I ever wanted to do was belong. And I always felt really different, really weird. And honestly, I was really psychic as a kid and I just never really like
Yeah.
knew. And yeah, I got these shoes for Christmas and I think I was like probably 8. So it was still the time where I was like, I believe in Santa, but like I don't, like transitioning through that stage of innocence, right? 8 or 9, maybe older. No, I was in 3rd grade, so I was 8.
Yeah.
And, you know, I got these shoes for Christmas. I was so excited. I don't remember what had happened. Something happened in the house where I felt uncomfortable. So I went to the next door neighbors and I called my mom. And my mom came over and got me, thank God, because, you know, though my mom had her Scorpio sun issues, my mom always had my back. And I really appreciate that. My mom had her own rage and her own, we call it trans mediumship, and her own fucking weird shit going on, which is why I teach what I teach, because so many women don't even know they're fucking doing that. They think it's them. It's not. They're just so out of body. They hit a picture, they go out of body, something comes in.
Yeah.
It's fucking weird. And so my stepmom found out that I did this, of course, because my mom probably bitched her out. Their relationship is so karmic, so karmic. And my stepmom made me return my Christmas present, like go with her to return the shoes as punishment.
Wow.
And like that to me was so fucking pathological.
That's fucked.
It's fucked up. Like my little baby heart.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I have to go buy myself Puma shoes right now. But
You need
like,
some Puma shoes.
it's just, I have them in my cart actually, weirdly, now that we're
Oh my
having
God,
this
I love
conversation.
it.
Because I'm trying to
The
buy
inner
some shoes.
child.
I'm trying to buy some shoes for Rome. And I'm like, what do I need to like walk? But
Mm.
yeah, this energy of, yeah, her not being able to take responsibility for how she's treating other women. And how a lot of us as healers heal the people who hurt us most. So the most cords that I probably have are with her.
Wow.
Because she's constantly in my space. She's constantly trying to mold who I am. And it's still to this day. And we're really like, honestly, sometimes no contact. Sometimes there's contact. I mean, she was really upset with me because she got breast cancer and I wasn't there. And I was like, you've never been there for me a day in my life. Like, why? I'm not here to like hold that pain for you.
No.
So yeah, I feel like this stepmother wound, and you sharing too, is just so much of like the mother wound and the sisterhood, but just the wound women have towards being able to be grounded in their bodies. You know, I want to say marrying partners that are like, I mean, this abuse cycle, I'm so done with it.
Yeah.
And, you know, these energies have made both of us feel really small.
Yeah.
And like we can't maybe ask for help, or
Mm-hmm.
that something will always come to hurt us when we're being ourselves. And that takes a lot of deep fucking shadow work.
A lot of deep shadow work. It's wild to think about, like, I don't know if you're the same, but when I dream, there's like archetypal things I'll dream about constantly, right? So one of them is the group of girls from, this is basically the same group of girls 3 different times, from grade school to second grade school to high school. Like, and I'll dream about them, and I'm always working out my shit with them. One is my aunt and my cousin, and then the other one is my dad and my stepmom. And I'm like, oh, every time I dream about it, we're like, we're still doing this, eh? We're still working this out. And it's wild, the shit that comes through of, yeah, just like the energetic, like you said, cords and shit that just need to be released, but then not really knowing how to do that or what that looks like. And, you know, some people can't cut these people out of their lives. They don't feel safe to, or they don't physically feel like they can, or whatever it is. It's interesting to see it all play out in its own way. And I was telling you when we first started having this conversation, you know, the breaking point with my stepmom was during the last couple of years. She said to my husband and I that we should die and we don't belong in society because we chose not to have the vaccine. And we chose our sovereignty. And that was the moment when I was like, every judgment you have put on me since I was 6 years old is coming to a head right now. And this is my line in the sand. And I was mentally, I'm like, I can't believe this is my line in the sand, that it took this long to get here. But I was like, all right, I'm not allowed to be a sovereign being at this point. So we're done. And I remember the conversation. I literally said, she kept going, you know, in what she had said. And then I was like, let's backtrack that. Did you literally say that Josh and I should die and not be allowed back in society? She was like, yep. And I was like, all right, here we go. And Josh could feel me revving up. And he was like, I think it was like a hand on the knee being like, you're going to do this. And I was like, we're doing this. And I just opened something I had been terrified to open for years. And I was shaking. I was so afraid. I had to ruminate on this for like months, honestly. The anger that came out of me being like, you can't allow me to be a sovereign human being right now, make a choice about my body. Like that was wild. And from that, I removed her from my space completely. But it was so interesting because in the moment, she went full temper tantrum, walked off the camera, screaming in the background. Well, my dad, so everyone will love this. She goes, said something about her constant judgment. And she said, what do I judge? And I was like, woman, you won't even ask what I do for a living because you're so judgmental of what you know I do is not approved by you. She goes, me, what about your father? He says you're a witch. She said the words. He says you're a witch. My dad goes, I do not. He goes, what shit are you putting on me right now? So she's having a storm temper tantrum. I'm like, what's wrong with being a witch? My dad's laughing. She's losing it. So I go, do you want to have a conversation about this to her? Right. I said, do you want to sit down and have a conversation about this? She's screaming, no, no, no. Like, we'll never talk about this, blah, blah, just losing her mind. So I said, all right, I'm open to the conversation when it happens. My dad is howling because he's like, this is wild right now. Josh is like, and I was like, and so what this moment was like alluding to, the moment she said the words, I felt the persecution of past lives. So she was the one. She was the one who, I don't know if it was hanged, burned, whatever it was, the witch persecution, instantly felt it viscerally. So I'd always known that was there. I always knew that she was someone that had persecuted me. But in that moment, I was like, oh, there it is. We're here again. Persecution. She's a witch. She's a witch. Damn. So that was one of these big moments where I was like, there's our past life karma coming to the surface and the removal I had to do in that moment of like, you have to go.
Sorry, I muted myself. Holy shit. You know, what broke that situation was you feeling the feelings in your body that like it's okay to be who you are. And like what I heard in that moment is that like you have always been the outcast. She couldn't take it anymore. In her world, when things are out of order, her trauma gets stimulated. And so another Virgo signature. But in that moment, you know, when you wouldn't conform to what she needed to feel safe, just lost her shit, couldn't handle that she can't control you.
That's exactly what it was.
It's like you were like, yeah, I'm, you know, here to, you know, when we remove cords or change, like we can do it in a lot of different ways. You can do it with energy work, or you can do it by just feeling your feeling and just being like, I'm going to stand up for myself. And that's what your inner child needed in that moment.
And it was terrifying.
Yeah, I'm sure you were shaking. I can imagine.
But the liberation point,
Fuck
you know, and
yeah.
I remember I called my mom afterwards, my mom and my stepmom, again, deeply karmic relationship. My mom hates that woman, like hates this woman. And I called her afterwards and I told her everything that happened. And she's like, I always told you that was horrible. She just like, it was actually like I think a catharsis for my mom too, of being like, you're finally ready to just lose it on this woman. I was like, it just took me 20 something years to get there.
It's deep. And you had to be able to, you know, hold space for that part of you to come fucking out and like your power, right? That was your power being like, I am not available for this anymore. You can have your little tantrum. I'm not available. But when you want to talk in like a clear and grounded way, I'm here. And that's love. That's love.
Literally, like that's exactly it. And I know she will never be ready.
And you know, that's the biggest thing that I see myself and a lot of clients moving through is even like everyone in this world is kind of realizing that you know, I've already kind of attuned to the grief that happens when you realize that, like, my parents aren't going to heal.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, like my parents have made
Yep.
their choices and they do not want to heal.
No, it's almost like an acceptance that's not their path.
It's just not their path. And so, to be neutral to it, you have to realize like they're not walking with our signatures. My dad's also a manifester, by the way, so it's like a fun little treat.
I always wonder about my mom because I don't know her birth time. One day I'll figure it out.
But
But
yeah.
it's exactly it. And they aren't here to do the work we're here to do. I truly believe we make our soul contracts with our parents, our step parents, all these people, to come down, because at a soul essence, I know my stepmom is not a bad person
No.
beyond this physical realm. When she's in soul, she's not this, right? She's playing a role, sorting out her karma, learning what she needs to learn, whatever that is, and however she's learning it in her own way. And so I know up there in the ether, her and I were like, let's go down and you're going to be an absolute fucking dick. You are just going to be a dick, right? And then I was like, cool. And I'm going to receive this assholeness, and it's going to make me, the highest version of myself. And so that's something I have to come back to all the time, where I'm like, her soul essence isn't evil, though the
No.
karma we are sorting out feels extremely evil.
Because it is, when you come down to work, especially with these like massive imprints of witch wounding, when you come down to work that energy, you got to come down with the people you love most. You don't love them in this life. You think I'm like super stoked about these placements of these people? No, they're irritating AF. I'm irritating them. Like it's an
Mhm.
irritation. It's the square energy.
Mhm.
I find that my dad on earth, hard pass, wouldn't want to hang out. My dad in spirit, besties, like he's so much fun in spirit. And, I find that too when our ancestors or like our grandparents or people transition over, like I find to have a way better relationship with them, like when they're out of
Absolutely.
body. Our bodies have so much karmic imprinting. And, people have made choices and they've been unconscious choices, and we're really lucky to start to have some of these tools now, start to really bring some of this into the world, and it's acceptable to not make such shitty choices. At least in
100%.
our perspective, like I wouldn't want that. Doesn't mean that they don't want it, but
Yeah, that's their stuff. But I feel that deeply when my Opa passed. My Opa was a hilarious German man, but he was also a very angry man. When I think about him, I'm like, he was a manifestor 100%. Like he just had that rage, the throat expression, overactive throat. Like, oh my gosh, Opal was a manifestor. But we had a tough relationship in this life where he was never, old European man, never said I love you. Um, it was no physical touch, very hard yet jovial Leo energy at the same time. And his frequency with me, I never felt like the special one. He bought my cousin everything in the whole world. My sister was his golden child. I was nothing. And he didn't mean to, right? But after he passed, he came to me in a dream. For several weeks, he would come to me in his dreams and speak to me. But the one, he just hugged me and held me, and he was like, I forgot to tell you I love you. Like, I forgot to tell you, I'm sorry I wasn't able to deliver that here on earth. And I remember just being like I knew it was him. I knew it was his spirit, just being like, sorry I couldn't do that when I was there, but here it is now. And so when I feel his energy now, I'm like, man, you can hang. It's cool. Like you can stay, because it's such a joyous energy to be around. But in, you know, life here on earth, he had so much density and so much karma and so much anger that it was, very limited amounts of time you could be in that frequency. So it's so fascinating to think, yeah, like after they pass, I agree completely. They're easier to communicate with actually than when they're here on earth.
yeah, and this is why we're doing this work. A lot of people will come to me and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I think I'm a medium or I think I'm a psychic." And I'm like, "You absolutely are." And they're like, "What do I do with it?" And that's such a like, you don't have to do anything with. Like we got to stop with that like
Mm.
idea. Like yes, your soul work is somewhere in who you are. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a medium. I have mediumship gifts. I don't tend to lean towards doing that for money. I do other things for money that are spiritual, but we have all these gifts. Some of them are just for the idea that if you can be open and you can have awareness, right? You can receive a healing from your grandpa in your dream space.
Yeah.
And that is life-changing. So it's like, we're all trying to, connect and be more open so we can receive the healing we deserve, because it's likely not coming from our parents.
No, and it's not coming from, the physical, right?
Yeah.
It's absolutely not coming from the physical. You're so right. Like even in our session we did together, my other grandpa came through, and same story. In this life, he physically couldn't get to me because of my grandmother, another woman line that just rejected and abandoned me. And I always knew he wanted to be in my space. And then in our session, he was like in there, right? Trying to protect me. He was like, I'm fighting all your battles for you. But that wasn't a supportive energy for me. But just knowing that even in spirit, he transitioned into a space of being like, I couldn't be there for her in the physical. I want to be there for her in the spiritual. And that knowing was so healing for me, to know that he chose a space where he could do something beyond life. Was like, I didn't fully abandon you. I didn't want to fully abandon you, right? And you're so right about, the mediumship. I'm a highly psychic person. I mean, I use my psychicness in astrology to, read the imprint of the soul and pull in that karmic signature. But most of my psychic energy is me dream healing. Like, honestly, it's me dream healing. Every day I wake up and I'm like, oh, that's what we're sorting out today. Cool, cool, cool. Like, okay, that's the signature coming through. Cool, right? Even my spirit baby has come in and guided me on ways to heal my body so I can have her. Like this is your psychic energy doesn't have to be, it can be just for you to heal you, which ripples through, right?
I'm just laughing a bit your 12th house stellium and how you're dream healing.
Dream heal. I dream heal, guys. Every time someone has like 12th house placements, I'm like, tell me about your dreams.
Mine are karmic AF. So with Daddy Saturn in there, that they're fun way
tell
to
me everything.
the fucking karma. Yeah.
Yep. Even when you take my progress chart, I have a progressed Libra stellium in the 12th house. So like no matter what, I'm doing this
your
work.
12th housing. I feel you. That Pluto is about to say hello to my 12th, and I'm like, please no. I'm like, the 11th house is enough.
I know. I'm like, I have to do something on this conversation, because the amount of people that have booked sessions with me on tell me I'm not going to die when Pluto shifts into the house. You had that conversation.
Oh, I was like, please confirm that I will not be dead. And Pluto's
not
like,
be
you
dead.
will. You
Not
will
be
be dying.
institutionalized. You will.
I'm like,
100%.
oh yeah. When I was like, please, I don't want to be institutionalized. But what really came through recently is I was working with my own mentor about it, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And so we've talked a little bit here, and then we'll wrap. But like, we talked a little bit here about kind of out of body energy. And so the 12th house obviously rules the dream space, which I call the astral space. And so in my program, you do a year to a year and a half of clairvoyant training, which is in your 6th layer of your aura. Then you do advanced training, which is your crown chakra, which is all about having seniority to out of body energies, which is fucking really hard because there's so many. And then after that, you start getting senior to being out of your body and coming in and out of it. So astral travel. That program is 5 years. It's a very intensive situation. So my mentor yesterday was like, oh, have you been looking at that? I'm like, I have, and I really don't want to do it, because it can be a very triggering experience, because
I can only imagine
what you're confronting in that program is every time you've left your body because of trauma.
Ooh.
And I'm like, I took one class and I was like, I want to die. I was like, so it's a very deeply beautiful process. And that will be my Pluto fucking transiting the 12th.
Oh my gosh.
It's gonna suck, but it's gonna be good.
I love this so much. This is so potent, and following like that aligns perfectly.
In Aquarius. In Aquarius.
Literally in Aquarius. Oh, what a deep ride. Deep ride.
It's gonna be a whole fucking journey that, will make me a really cool person. But like also is gonna Pluto my life.
It's going to be that deep transformation, transfiguration, alchemical process of Who the fuck is Alexandria?
Who is she? And she's still figuring that out.
Absolutely. It's a complete disintegration, right? And then you get look forward to the disintegration of self into the rebuilding of self.
Yeah. And that's what you told me when I had my chart read. You're like, you got to get comfortable disintegrating. I said, fuck.
Yeah. You
It's,
are
Lilith
literally,
on the ascendant for me.
yeah. Yeah. Our girl. Our girl.
She's on the freaking ascendant right now. She's like, okay. Does
Mhm.
that feel like a good place to complete?
Okay, I feel like
Yeah,
we've touched on so
we
much, and there's
have. I'm
still so
just,
much to touch on.
there's more, there's like 17 more podcast episodes that we have.
8,000.
We have so much to say because we have such similar paths in a lot of ways, which is like the whole point of sisterhood. That's like the
I
whole
know.
point. If you can move through the weird competition energy and the jealousy that's all programmed into us, like you have to
Seriously.
realize that your sisters are the ones you share the most in common with.
100%. And we're here to lift you, right? Like even the stepmother wound is competition.
It's
It is the
competition.
competition that they will be usurped by you, right? It's the traditional royal story that they will be usurped by you in some way, that they won't be the special one. When in reality, if these women could heal, it could have been deep friendship, right? You didn't even have to be a mother figure if that wasn't supportive. It could have been that role model you mentioned earlier, the friend, the sister. There's so many other ways to play that frequency that doesn't threaten anyone, right? Like,
100%.
and think about the healing to the man in that space where he now no longer needs to choose. Like, what a deep healing for him.
The idea too is that your daughter will always usurp you. Like your daughter will always
True.
come up because she is your healing prayer. So the fact that women, like that's the whole idea of being a mother, is you put yourself in a situation where your daughter will pass you. And
Oh,
that's what I see a
100%.
lot with the mother courting.
Mm.
You have to organically let your child be better than you.
Mm,
And
I
so many
feel
people
that
can.
deeply. I feel like my mom's very good at that for
Yeah.
all of our wounding. She has, since I came out the womb, been like, this one is the golden one, like
She's
the chosen child,
your
right?
Leo
So
moon.
she's,
She's like, you're done.
yeah, but she put that opposite pressure of being like, you are the greatest, you must achieve all the things I couldn't achieve.
Which is also the
But
shadow of it.
it's another a shadow, but in the same regard, she's always been there, even in, my line of my mother, my Oma, my great Oma, and then my great great Oma, extremely psychic line. My great great Oma was like this known crazy psychic lady over in Croatia, and
Mood.
that line carries all these dormant energies of psychic, because my mom's so crazy psychic. But she said to me several times, I wish that mine was like yours, because she can't control hers. She doesn't feel like she has governance over it, right? And she looks at mine and she's like, I want your abilities. But she is ready to lift me up and be like, look at my daughter. She literally does that in the store. She'll be
Aww.
like, this is my daughter. She's a healer. She's this. And so that energy is exactly what the mother's supposed to do, is to say,
Mm-hmm.
when mine comes in, I already know her, I already know her name, I already know her energy, her archetype. Like she is Demeter, however you want to say it. She is that archetype.
Yeah.
And I know she's going to be way more psychic than me. And I'm going to
Oh,
be like,
she's
okay,
gonna be the mother. Yeah.
literally, she is the mother. She's Gaia. And I know I'm just going to have to be like, container,
You get
holding you.
to really address like your own shortcomings, right? But also you get to bring more love to those spaces, and that's what our children do for us. It's
100%
like the biggest fucking journey of self-discovery you can have is like pretty much having a
ever.
business or having a child. One of those two, like
Yeah.
the fucking luck.
And both at the same time.
Do both at the same time.
Have
Because
fun.
if you love Pluto, you'll do both at the same time.
I will be doing the same, both at the same time. We're going in.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here on this podcast.
Mm,
It's such an honor to be in connection with you and for you
ditto.
to share all this wisdom. And just like, I hope everyone listening just got a little healing on, again, the mother wound, but it's the stepmother wound.
Yeah, it's so
Where
true.
it is like, it's like, okay. And maybe there was just like some fucking awesome moments of like, deep breath, exhale.
Deep breath.
So where can people find you, work with you? Tell us all, initiate the people. I love it.
So the easiest is probably usually Instagram. I'm the most active on there right now. Vika Bradford Astrology. My TikTok's the same at Vika Bradford Astrology. My podcast is the It's Karmic podcast. It's pretty juicy. There's a good conversation, like we mentioned, with Alexandria. You guys are going to probably want to go listen to right after this, honestly. If I'm being completely honest, that has been a super activating one for all my people. And I think it's like riding the coattails of my highest listen so far.
Ooh.
So it's getting up there. And my website is like just Vika Bradford just Vika Bradford. That's what it is. And those are probably your best places to connect with me. I would say Instagram's the number one, TikTok second.
You guys go book a reading. Go get over there, check out her programs. I am just check out the free offerings on her blog because she's so much to say and so much to share. And I think that if this resonated with you, you're going to want to dive into more information. So
yeah, definitely.
Thank you for being here, love.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Until next time, enjoy your journey. You've been listening to High Havingness, the podcast. I'm your host, Alexandria Kenyon. You want to connect with me more? You can visit my website, alexandriakenyon.com, or send me a DM on Instagram, alexandria.kenyon. Enjoy your journey.